Right now, this is just blight. It's not being utilized. It's just an eyesore when people ride by it. So if we're able to clean this up, it could actually spur redevelopment in other areas. We were approached by the Cemetery Foundation a couple years ago about trying to acquire the farmers market from the state of Georgia. And as part of our due diligence process, we started doing some environmental studies. We actually have a grant from EPA right now, the city does, and what that grant allows us to do is to do environmental site assessments, phase 1s and phase 2s, and hazardous materials surveying on properties. So we were able to utilize that EPA grant that we currently have to do some environmental studies out here. Well, what those studies came back and found that we actually had some contamination on site, to include asbestos, lead-based paint, and then they found some petroleum in the soil as well. So at that time, our environmental consultant, who we work with, Terracon Consultants, they came forward and said, you know, this would really be a good site for an EPA Brownfield Cleanup Grant. And it just happened that the grant process was beginning, and it was actually issued on November 28th. And so since that time, what we decided to do is to go ahead and move forward with trying to apply for this grant. And this grant would allow us to have up to $500,000 to help clean up the site. We do have a good partnership with the Cemetery Foundation. They're willing to invest in this project as well. What their overall goal is to see all three of the cemeteries connected. And so what they would like to do is have green space park area as well, but eventually maybe construct a columbarium on part of the property, and then maybe some pavilions or something for people who are out here having ceremonies or memorial services can utilize the pavilion for gathering places. A lot of people are in favor of the green space area. Many want to keep the farmers' agriculture aspect of the property here as well. We've had a lot of comments about having trails going through, maybe having markers that identify historic figures who might be buried in the cemeteries, and maybe having an app or something that would actually help locate the burial plots of those individuals. We've had ideas of sensory gardens for children with autism, or elderly people with dementia. We've had demonstrations areas where you could talk about gardening and farming, and we've talked about having little small playgrounds that might be representative of farming, you know. And so another thing we would look at eventually, once we determine what this site will be used for, is possible connectivity. I mean, how can we get people here? You know, the city's got all these trails and stuff now. I mean, is there a possibility that we could do trails or something that would lead to the site so that people that might be at South Commons or in the Liberty District would be able to get here to utilize this space as well? It would be a great opportunity to be able to start from scratch, and we don't come across this very often. And then being able to potentially get a $500,000 grant to help clean it up is even more enticing, you know, to the fact that we actually will have our foot in the door and actually have some resources committed to this particular project.